how are you? I am alright. Apologies for the lack of uploads. I will be putting more time into my channel starting with this video. And check out this voice. So cool. Help, they won't let go. Anyway, I'd like to thank today's video sponsor, Fume. In this video, I will be ranking weapons in guts and black powder, and they will be put in order of weapon type. And lastly, I will be ranking the weapons from my own opinion and my general understanding of the game. Now without further ado, let's begin. Let us start first with ranged weapons, beginning with the standard pistol for the officer. I mean, it's alright for a starter weapon for those just getting into the class, decent range, penetration, okay damage, and an amazing reload time. I would say it is good for picking off the odd bomber, but not much else, and ranged attack is not the officer's main focus as they have the charge ability which comes in handy quite often. Contrary to what I just said, I find the weapon quite inconsistent with penetration, especially if you are willing to invest francs into the officer. Then the brass pistol or double barrel are a much better choice. When ranking the weapons, I am going to be using this very original chart. It's a very straightforward system. I hope it catches on. Anyway, I will be putting the officer's standard pistol in the B tier. Moving on to the next weapon, that being the musket. My background footage for this segment got corrupted, so here's a crab eating a chip. Yeah, so about the musket, I think it is a great weapon and I often find myself using it. It has good damage and penetration and pretty good range. Maybe not as much as say the rifle, but it sure has a better reload time than the rifle that makes up for it. Though one thing that elevates this weapon above others for me is the addition of a bayonet, which is honestly a good melee weapon on its own, and I have seen quite a few people use it, especially on endless maps like Wilhay. Though the bayonet doesn't have best damage out of all that is available for infantry, it makes up for that by having easy headshots and a long range. Now onto the ranking. I think the musket is an all-around balanced weapon with its own unique playstyle due in large part to the bayonet. It feels very rewarding to use, especially when you are able to get a clean shot on say a bomber hiding in a horde, and the bayonet can be used to great effect in thin choke point areas like on La Fern and the entryways on Hookamont. So I believe the musket goes firmly in the A tier. Now on to the last ranged weapon of this video, that being the blunderbuss. Now this weapon I use all the time on Seaman class. It's a great weapon for crowd controlling. It has a lot of pellets, a lot of damage, a wide spread, alright range, and good penetration. It is a great weapon to use to wipe out hordes, especially if you have a backline of shooters using blunderbuss, which you may have seen being used to reach high rounds on endless. Even if you don't have an entire backline of blunderbuss, it's still an effective weapon in the hands of one player given its spread. I would say the only drawbacks to the blunderbuss are its reload time and how slow you move when reloading, but the reload speed isn't that bad. It's just slightly longer than the muskets, and if you are using the blunderbuss for backline support, the walk speed penalty really isn't an issue. Though I guess on the other hand, if you are at the front and the horde's attention is on you, it might not be best to reload when being pursued, and you should preferably switch to melee unless you are confident. Now on to the ranking. Now given the blunderbuss damage and combined with its spread and penetration, it is a very powerful weapon when facing any foe and especially breaking up big groups of zombies. Though it does have some small drawbacks, it's not that impactful on the weapon's performance, so I believe the blunderbuss belongs firmly in the S tier. And that concludes the default ranged weapons segment of this video. As we now move on to the Welcome to the second half of the video, where we will be ranking the default melee weapons. And what better way to start off than with the saber? It is honestly a great melee weapon. I find myself using it as much as the heavy saber, which is another great weapon. It is quite versatile with its different swings and thrust. For instance, if I'm facing runners, I switch to the low thrust for a better reach, and then the side swings when I'm dealing with bigger and slower moving hordes and individual shamblers. Though I basically never use the downward swing as it is the slowest and I haven't seen much practical use for it. Oh yeah, there's also an attack that is kind of difficult to pull off, where you hold down the low thrust and then you jump up, and when your saber is at the same level as the head of a zombie, you release the thrust and get a one-tap kill due to the head being the weak spot. It's quite satisfying to pull it off, though it's better suited for individual attacks rather than hordes. Overall, the saber is a very good, useful, and versatile melee weapon that is good at dealing with all types of zombies. Minus the bomber, of course. Now with that, I think we can move on to the ranking. Given what I have said already, there's not really anything else to do other than put it on the chart. So without further ado, I will be putting the saber in the A tier. Now we move on to arguably one of the best melee weapons in the entire game, that being the sapper's axe. Aside from the pickaxe, the axe for the sapper is the highest damage melee weapon in the whole game, with it being able to one-tap almost every type of zombie. I don't see there being that much need to use the vertical swings, as the side swings do massive amounts of damage across a wider area. And what elevates this weapon even further is the addition of the shove that stuns multiple zombies for a few seconds. This can be so useful, like for instance, it's a faster way to get runners off of your teammates, and it's a great way to protect a structure if it's being targeted by multiple zombies, which is very useful for getting to high rounds on Endless. With the shove you can also block a strike from a zapper, which also stuns them, which is pretty neat. But on the contrary, the axe has a very slow swinging speed, which can make you more vulnerable to runners compared to non-zappers unless there's a structure. However, with experience you can adjust to its speed, like stunning runners without a structure in front of you can be hard to get right, but once you do, it can be very useful and rewarding. And with that, it's ranking time. Bye bye little crab. So given the axe's many feats and capabilities, I think it belongs high up on the chart. Even though it has a slow swinging speed, I don't think it's enough to bring it down a tier. So I will be putting the axe in the S tier. Wow! Our second S tier, so cool. I wonder what's next. This weapon, if you can even call it that, is a joke. It does absolutely dookie damage. It takes 2 goddamn hits to kill a runner. Oh, and you might be saying, you can one-tap runners with the stake if you land an up attack on one.
Do I amuse you? Am I some sort of clown to you?
I hate my job.
Yeah, I know, but the odds of you doing that every single time is slim to none. This is honestly the worst weapon in the game. The only thing of worth in this weapon is the really fast swing rate. That's literally it. Now let's move on before I have a stroke. I really don't know if this even belongs on the chart, but whatever. The final weapon of this video belongs firmly in the E tier. Wow! We are done. Well, I'd like to thank you first and foremost for sticking around this long. It may have only been 10 minutes, but it sure took me a while. So with all that said and done, bye-bye.